minute though. Yeah, preparing to live stream the meeting.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Hello.
Wait, we're not on yet.
Oh,
Hold
it
on.
said that it was
It's
live.
still loading. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. We are so excited to have this great time of celebration and recognition, and also the continuation of the work of Dr. Martin Luther King. I am Elder Patrick Lyons, and I am so honored to be your MC for this fantastic event, which is featured, established, and put on by the NAACP under the leadership of Brother Gary Horton, who is the president. And again, we have just a great team of minds, a great collaboration of community leaders, spiritual leaders, entrepreneurs, and those who stand in the gap to set up the leadership of the city so that Erie, Pennsylvania can make sure we are doing what it takes to maintain the quality of life for minorities and all those across the entire board that call Erie their home. And so we want to begin this great event, of course, by thanking all of you who are joining us, thanking all of you who have come on board, thanking all of you for viewing, and thanking the entire team of great minds who have come together to pour into this moment. This is a crucial hour. This is a crucial time. Dr. Martin Luther King, as he spoke in New York City, I just watched a recording of it, and he opened up the recording speaking to this truth. He established the vital nature of a red light, and he expressed that even though a red light is important and we have laws that speak to obedience to the red light, that if there's a fire, even a fire company knows to go through a red light so they can save a burning building. He also spoke to the ambulance, how they're aware that if someone is bleeding out, that they have to disobey the law and push through to a place of getting to that person as quickly as possible. And what is that? That's because of urgency. Urgency, the word urgent implies a sense of mandatory response. It implies that there's a time-sensitive event, something crucial, something important that must be addressed. And that's literally the reason why we're here today, because we're in the middle of a crucial event. We're in the middle of decisions that are being made that will change the direction of our entire country. That there are decisions that are made where if the wrong decisions are made, it will mute our alarm. Just as every ambulance and every fire truck and every police vehicle has an alarm to warn everybody around them of an urgency to get somewhere, so do we have an alarm. What's our alarm? It's our right to vote. Our right to vote speaks to the issues, the bleeding of democracy, the bleeding out of our community, the bleeding out of minorities. And so today I really want to begin this time by encouraging you to take responsibility for your rights. There are three rights that I'm going to address very quickly that are tied into, there's three responsibilities that are tied to every right we have. Number one, whenever you have a right, it must be, number one, exercised. We as a people have responsibility, and we have the objective of exercising the rights that have been fought for us. Not only do we have the right to do so, we have an assignment to do so. Somebody bled, somebody died, somebody marched for miles, somebody was beaten by police, somebody was unfairly imprisoned, somebody was chased by dogs, somebody was sprayed with a water hose, simply so we could have the right to vote. So our first mandate as a group of people, as the people of the United States of America, as minorities, as citizens of the United States, is to exercise our right. Now, that is the part of us as recipients of the right. But then there's another responsibility. The second responsibility is we have to protect this right. We have to protect the right. Number two is there's a responsibility on the part of those governing over us to protect our right to vote. We have spoken, democracy has a platform where we hear from the people, that those who lead the people speak on the behalf of the people for the good of the people. And so it is our understanding, and what we project today is it is time for our leadership. It's time for us to protect this right. We cannot afford to work in reverse and undo all the labor in the work of the civil rights movement by losing our right to vote. We can't afford to be silenced by losing the right to vote. We can't afford to still not be represented and be spoken for and be heard of, because aggression is the voice of those who have been muted. And in order to avoid escalation, we've got to move intently towards protecting the rights that are afforded to us as citizens of the United States. Last thing, and I'm out your way, is we must transfer this right into the culture coming behind us. You see, every right must be exercised, every right must be protected, but these rights must be integrated into the fabric of our culture. In other words, we must become so tied into this culture that you don't see people without seeing rights. You don't see people without seeing opportunity, and you don't see people without social service and social justice, because we all have this right. It must be exercised, it must be protected, and it must be integrated into the fabric of our culture. At this time, as we move forward, we're going to go to this short film, which is a snippet of Dr. Martin Luther King speaking. Pay attention to your screen.
I think that is an answer to that myth, and it is that time is neutral. It can be used either constructively or destructively. And I'm absolutely convinced that the forces of ill will in our nation, the extreme righteous in our nation, have often used time much more effectively than the forces of goodwill. And it may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words of the bad people and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, wait on time. Somewhere we must come to see that social progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. And so we must help time, and we must realize that the time is always right to do right.
Thank you so much for, it is indeed time. It's an urgent time, the urgency of now and the time to do right. We're going to move forward with our speakers, and at this time, we're going to have a former city councilman, Curtis Jones Jr., also a pastor, community leader, public speaker, a member of the Jones, world-renowned Jones family in the city of Erie, who is going to come and share knowledge with us as we move forward.
Thank you, Minister Elder Lyons. Thank you to Mr. Gary Horton and the NAACP of Erie, as well as the state and national leadership of the NAACP, and to all of those that are on this call, whether you are an elected leader, a leader by the position in your life that you serve others, your gifts and your talents and your abilities to make their life and our world better. It's an honor to be on this call, to have the opportunity to be a speaker and to share a few moments with you and a few things that are on my heart and on my mind. You know, we are here celebrating and also happy Dr. King Day to everyone as well. And we are here celebrating a life lived well and a life given to the effort and the work of justice and peace and equity. And not, Dr. King didn't just give his life for others, but he lived his life while he lived for others. And sometimes we talk a lot about martyrdom, but I'd rather live life for others than just give my life for others, because I can do more while I'm still here with you. So I want to, hopefully my few moments to share with you will be a bit of a challenge and a bit of a reminder of your responsibility and our responsibility. As Elder Lyons told us, that we have to exercise our rights to vote, and we have to protect our rights to vote, and we must be strategic and intentional about passing on the importance and integrating this wonderful gift and right that we've received in this country to vote. But I want to back up for a minute. We say often that your vote is your voice, and that is true. But I want to do something and share something with you that may be a little bit different than just that. Not only is your vote your voice, but we must begin to allow our voices and make our voices to be heard before it's time to vote. Because many times we get excited about election years, we do GOTV, we get out the vote, we do all these things, and they are necessary. But we have not done some preliminary work to get people to realize the reality that their vote does matter, and their vote is their voice. But before you speak with the ballot, you have to speak with your action. You have to speak with your concern for the community and for the municipality and for the nation that we live in. And so before you vote, I want you to have your voice to be active in the community, talking to people who are and have been disenfranchised, who have been marginalized, who don't believe that their vote is enough of a voice to make a difference. As a 13-year, I got the baker's dozen of years as a city council member. And what I learned is that elected officials and policymakers listen to those who exercise their voice, not just with the ballot, but exercise their voice throughout their term, that stay relevant and stay concerned and stay active and stay involved in policy making, stay involved in making sure that the elected officials know that people are still articulating, even outside of an election year, what it is that is necessary for them to and want them to do for us. And so as I wrap up my moments of sharing with you, I just want to reiterate everything that Elder Patrick said, but I also want you to know that your voice starts before your vote. And we must go out into community, articulate to those who don't believe it matters, how much it matters. And I know one of the speeches that Dr. King shared with us while he was with us on this planet, he said, how long? Not long. But I want to back up to what was shared a few moments ago in the video clip. This is a message that I shared with our congregation yesterday out of the book of Romans. It says, now is the time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation, our deliverance, our freedom, our equity, our oneness closer than when we first believed. And so today I want us to know that it's time for us to wake up from the dream so that we can make that dream our reality. We do that with our vote, yes, the voice of our vote, but also the voice of the things that we say and do in community before and after an election year that will make our community the best and the brightest and the most amazing that it can be. And ultimately, we can fulfill the dream and the desire of Dr. King and so many others, that we would live together in that beloved community. It's my honor to be able to share with you. I honor all the elected officials and all the pastors that are here and all the citizens of the city of Erie who are participating. Nothing but love, but let's make our voice heard before the vote and with the vote. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Curtis Jones. We thank God for you, and we thank you for sharing at this time. We're going to move a little forward. We have Jasmine Flores, who was one of our newly elected city councilwomen. We're so excited about her passion as a citizen of Erie, Pennsylvania, moving forward in leadership of Erie, Pennsylvania. Miss Jasmine, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me and having me here. I'm so happy that this is a discussion on voting. I think I'm evidence. I'm definitely proof in running for city council that every vote counts. When I ran in 2019, I was a 25-year-old, no name recognition, no having any type of connection, and I was 187 votes short from locking that spot in 2019. So if you keep the pressure on, you keep engaging your community, you keep registering voters, it can definitely happen. I think that's why there is such a power minimize the vote, trying to limit our voting, because voting is important. Voting is our voice. When I ran in 2021, I was the second highest vote getter in a primary year during a pandemic. So definitely keeping the pressure on is important, and every vote does matter. we can see that the Erie community doesn't participate. And that's like Curtis Jones had said, we're not consistent in our tactics. We go away after the election is over, which is kind of ironic considering Pennsylvania is a state that has elections every year. So I think that we just have to be consistent and genuine when we're having conversations and making sure our community knows that every vote does indeed matter. Because I have people all the time that I change their mind on voting once I tell them my story of 2019 being short by that small margin, because we all probably know 187 people who are not registered to vote. So just with me, I just want to say that every vote matters. The Voting Right Act of 1965 was only 57 years ago. I'm 28 years old. I was the first Latina and the youngest council member elected to Erie City Council. So we need to do the work now, and there's no better time than now for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Flores. Thank you for sharing, and we are excited to see your leadership in the city of Erie. At this time, we also want to move into another of our newly elected city council members, Brother Mo Troop, who is not just a city council member, he also is a principal and serves our Erie School District in his leadership there. Also, he serves our entertainment in the city of Erie as a musician with his band. And so we are excited to turn the floor over to him at this time.
Good afternoon. Can everybody? I would like to start off by thanking NAACP and all of you for being here today. So I'm gonna go back. I looked into one of Martin Luther King's speeches called "I've Been to the Mountaintop." So here's something that King said. He said, "The world is sick." He said, "Trouble is in the world." "Confusion is all around." Would you agree that in 2022, the world is still in the same condition? Our city is still in the same condition. Here's something else that King said. It is our duty to grapple with the problems of this world. Question for you. Are you ready to grapple? Something else that King said. We must show the world that we mean business. And that we are determined to gain our rightful place in this world. Are the people that are on this meeting today, are you ready to handle the business that we need to handle? So we talk about our youth. Are we creating an environment in which all of our youth feel nurtured, valued, and hopeful that they live in a city that will create equal opportunity for them to live a successful life? As the MC stated, I am an assistant principal in Erie. And here's two things that I've heard students actually say to me. Mr. Troop, Why should I try? Nobody cares about us. And nobody in my family has ever succeeded in this city. Another thing I've heard. Mr. True. I didn't think Black people ever did anything good. Those two things tell me there's a lack of hope. It is our job to infuse hope in the youth of our city. To finish off his speech, King said, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. So my question in closing, what are we going to do to take our youth to the mountaintop so they can really see and believe that there is a promised land for them in Erie, Pennsylvania? Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Troop, for that challenge and the reminder that our job is to infuse hope into our young people. We're going to transition a little further as we go to Miss Angela Yule McNair, local entrepreneur. We know her from her work with the school board as a member, and so we're just excited to have her on board and hear from another one of Erie's leaders and business owners. Come on, Miss Angela, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the ask by Mr. Horton, and I was more than happy to accept. I just will be really brief. I just know how amazing God's love is, and it's so amazing. And the fact that, he poured his love out through Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I feel like he was a perfect example of God's love. I feel that he led the way and he showed people, he showed all of us, he paved the way for all of us to see how you can just reach out to other people's through love. You don't always have to get violent. You don't always have to go tit for tat. He was just a perfect example of love for me. What he did for the world, I don't feel like it was just for our country. I feel like it was something that was seen around the entire world. I know that, people reached out to him from all over the world, to commend him for his efforts. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. He was just a perfect example of how, giving yourself to others and making yourself available in order to, help the community, the country, and the world. He was a part of so many policies that went forth in this country that changed things in education, in the workforce, through the Montgomery bus boycott, through, some of the labor things that he has done, and just all the civil rights activities that, he put out there and he led, is just, paved the way. And without him, we could still possibly be at a standstill as a race. I know that, he projected that some of the things he wanted to see would have happened sooner. Even as far as having a Black president, I know that he projected it probably would have happened sooner, but it happened. And I think that now is the time for us as leaders to just step up. What better time is it than now to do the things that's needed to provide equality for humanity across the whole world, especially right here in the city of Erie. Our population is so diverse here in the city of Erie. It's unbelievable. I meet people from all over the world here, and you know, our focus needs to be on making sure things are equal. With COVID hitting, we saw a lot of inequities for the minority population, and we're still working through it. We're actively working through, COVID and some of the inequities and things like that. So I think that we need to really step back, all of us leaders, and take this opportunity to follow Dr. King's lead, and try to make sure that we see some true progress. Too often do we hear about what needs to be done. Too often do we talk about what needs to be done. Too often do we have these meetings that I don't see any productivity come from. Not that we haven't made any progress, not that some of these people that's sitting right on this call today haven't done work that was amazing in this community, along with myself, creating policies, as a school board member. I've created the diversity committee leading to the diversity officer position, advocated for hiring of minorities, and so many other amazing things that, happened during my 8 years on the school board. And I just feel like us leaders that's on this call now have done a lot, but there's still more to do. It's not over yet. We're not done. And we need to grab somebody by the hand and bring them along with us, and not be scared to work together, not be scared to, reach out to one another to make sure that we make continual progress in our city, because we have children coming up, grandchildren coming up, family members that live here, that we need to make sure we pave the way for them so that they have a chance to live their lives in this city as equal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela, for your work you've done, the legacy you've added to, and for sharing with us today. I'm honored to introduce a dear brother and friend, and one who definitely loves Erie and serves Erie well. We know him through his work as county council leader, and breaking the mold with county council. We know him with his connection in the community, his service to the community, and the legacy that he continues as a Horton. So with that in mind, we want to turn this moment over into the hands of Andre Horton so we can hear from him.
Good afternoon. Greetings, everyone. This is the day that the Lord has made. And come what may, we will. We are glad and we rejoice in it. Thank you, NAACP. And I honor all of you who are on the call. Voting rights. Twice in the 18th and 19th century, Black men were granted the right to vote. In 1776, the end of the Civil War, we were all granted the right to vote, but it was largely ignored. They said that only free Black men could vote. By 1838, the 15th Amendment, by 1838, our voting rights were under assault again, and the law was made that we could not vote again. 1866, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 guaranteed all male citizens the right to vote. Pennsylvania was the 12th state to ratify that amendment. It was signed on March 30th of 1870. Okay, and I say all of that to say that our constitutional rights are under assault. Our democracy is under assault. Just like the War of 1776, Pennsylvania, Erie, where the Civil War was fought in Pennsylvania, the city of Erie saved the nation. We fought out in this thing called the Battle of Lake Erie. I like to think that once again, we saved the nation in 2020 here in Pennsylvania when we went back blue. Why that's important is because here in the state of Pennsylvania, where the Republicans control the House, our voting rights are under assault. I don't think that we're giving it the attention that it justly deserves. It goes back all the way. Pennsylvania has a rich history of denying Blacks the right to vote. On October 10th, 1871, Octavius V. Cato was killed in an attempt to vote. The Black suffragette movement was abroad. The 15th Amendment was passed. It was largely ignored until 1960s. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. We lost many of the gains that we gained in between 1776 and 1838. By 1877, the start of Reconstruction, Blacks largely were ignored. The poll taxes, they asked you how many bubbles in a bar of soap. It was just really bad. And I'm afraid that we're facing that again today. I stand here to raise the alarm here locally in county government when we say all politics are local. And I rise to raise the alarm because for the first time in over 20 years, the Republicans control county council, which means they also control the election office. If I didn't say anything else, that should give you pause, and that should motivate you to go out and register as many people to vote and get them to the polls as you can. Could you imagine what it would have been like last year had they controlled it, when all the recounts, all of the analysis, voting analysis, all of the people not wanting to certify? Well, we could face that right here this year in 2022. So it's imperative that this call just don't be just another program. It don't be just another Zoom call. It don't be just another conversation, just another meeting, just another gathering of the minds, but it is a call, a clarion call to action. Martin Luther King said that we all can serve. There's no greater service, or there's no greater right than an American have than the franchise of the right to vote. 1838, they passed a law. They said only white men were franchised to vote. We didn't get that right back again, like I said, till the 15th Amendment was passed March 26, 1869, and it was adopted March 30th, 1870. We know that last year, or the years gone by, whether it's voter ID laws, whether it's voter ID laws, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's felons not being able to vote, our right to vote has always been under assault. I served in the military, United States Air Force. I took an oath of office. I vowed to defend this Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Mm-hmm. And so never have I been more offended. Never have I been more alarmed than I am now at what's going on here in this country, in this dispensation that we find ourselves in. And so again, we need to put aside our petty differences. We need to get our head out of the sand. We need to be about our business and not just Black history, because whether it's critical race theory, whether it's you not being able to exercise your franchise, whether it's people in Georgia not being allowed to get a glass of water while waiting in lines for 10, 12 hours to vote, while white neighborhoods can walk right in and walk in the poll and be out in 20 minutes. Here in Pennsylvania, we had the first drop box in the entire state. I'm very proud of that fact. We have work to do. So on behalf of myself, my family, my community, I vow to do all that I can to register as many people and get as many people to the polls, and to continue to blow the trumpet and to raise the clarion call that our right to vote is under assault and that America's democracy is under assault. I want to thank NAACP. Many of you on the call, I congratulate our new council members, my new comrades. I welcome dialogue and conversation with you. It's imperative that we as Black and brown elected officials get together. In fact, it's ridiculous that we don't in a time like this. And so I'll extend the offer again to all who are on the line, all past and present elected officials, or all who Black leadership. I extend the olive branch. And anything that I've done that may have caused me to be polarizing or to offend anyone, it's back there. We have work to do. And I, for one, I said, I think Isaiah, it says, in the year of King Uzziah, the Lord was in his holy temple, and this train filled the temple. Yeah. He said, and the cherubim rose with 2 tongues and picked up a live coal, touched it to his mouth. His eyes were awoken, and he said, here I am, Lord, send me. And I'm asking you to send me. I'm asking you to follow my lead. I'm asking you to be courageous. We declared racism a health emergency crisis in Erie, Pennsylvania, in Erie County. It wasn't just a feel-good moment. It was the groundwork that we lay, a foundation that we can ask for, not for reparations, but for fairness. It laid the groundwork that we can ask, and that we can demand, and that we can declare, and that we can decree that we no longer are going to be accepted or to be acknowledged or to be treated as second-class citizens. We know that the Democratic Party, here's an interesting fact, and I'll be quiet, because we talked about the constitutional amendment, constitutional convention, in the Constitutional Convention in 1838 that took the right for Black men to vote and it gave it to franchised only white men. The charge that was led for the advocacy for Blacks to vote was led by, get this, Republicans. Republicans in 1838 fought for the right for Blacks to vote. Here it is in 2022. They're doing everything in their power to marginalize our vote. And we ought to stand up and do something about it. And shame on us if we don't. The mayor, I see he's on the line. I want to be a partner. Says he wants to eradicate racism. But we stand with him in that call, in that charge. And we have an opportunity with 3 Black on city council and a Latino sister, a brown sister on city council, where the board is composed of 7 people and 4 votes can move an agenda. We can have a civilian police review board tomorrow. If someone came in and said, I move that we have a civilian police review board, and it's seconded, and it's discussed, and it's voted upon. It's that simple. 5 votes will keep it from being vetoed. It's time to take our words and to put them into action. I don't know about you all, but I, as a Black man, 62-year-old Black man, have heard it all. I've been told a lot of things have been said to me. My mother, who had like a 8th, 9th, 10th grade education, she said this thing that me and my brothers and my siblings, we all live by, and that's we can show you better than we can tell you. The time for rhetoric and political speeches and feel-good phrases is over. And I'll close with this. Without a policy shift or a budgetary line item, it's all rhetoric. Let's protect our vote. Let's enact policies. Let's pass a budget that reflects our words that says that we want to eradicate racism. Thank you, NAACP. Happy Martin Luther King Day to everyone. And this still is the Lord's Day. Come what may. We are glad about it and we rejoice in it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Brother Andre Horton. We appreciate your investment and your sharing with us today. At this time, we want to bring in our mayor, Mayor Joe Schember. We're so glad to have him on with us. It's good to have him dialogue. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to him so we can hear from our mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lyons. I really appreciate it. This has really been a great meeting. I'm learning a lot. I really appreciate everything that's been said already. And the one thing I didn't realize was as bad as it is until I became mayor 4 years ago is racism does still exist in Erie. I'm really, really upset about that. And as I said over and over again, if I have accomplished nothing else as mayor, the one thing I want to do is end racism, because color of skin is such a minor difference between people. I mean, we're 99% the same, regardless of our gender, our ethnic heritage, the color of our skin, all of that. To me, that's what makes life good, that people have slightly different perspectives on things and we can learn from each other. So again, I want every person in Erie accepted for the unique talents and skills that I believe every person on this call and everyone in the city of Erie has. I think minorities have been discriminated against for so long that it's kind of stuck in the back of the mind that's there. But again, we want to transform Erie and make it much better. As I said before, if I accomplish nothing else, that's the one thing I'd really like to accomplish. I go to every new American swearing in at the federal courthouse. There's about 500 new Americans sworn in every year at the Erie Federal Courthouse, and most of them live and work in Erie. And the vast majority of them are people of color as well, from all over the world. Like they've been from like 100 different countries. So I believe over time, whites are going to become a minority, which, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's fine, because if we all just accept each other, it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or what your ethnic background is or what your gender is or any of that. Let's just kind of accept each other for who we are. COVID-19 has taken a big toll on all of us in terms of keeping us apart. And many of us, including myself, have lost loved ones to COVID-19 that we never should have lost. But I really appreciate the fact that we're doing this by Zoom rather than face-to-face, because we can still talk, we can still communicate, share things, but we're not risking sharing a disease with each other. I'm hoping we can get this under control very quickly. I set a goal of that by June 30th this year, it would be under control. I don't know whether that'll happen or not. I just kind of picked that out. But I really, really want us to get COVID under control first, keep everybody safe, and then really start interacting and being together a lot again. One last thing I just want to mention is, as I think most of you know, we got about $76 million in ARP funding. That funding is really dedicated to minorities, people, because minorities are more affected by COVID-19 than whites were, very honestly. And so we're trying to use the money that way. We're trying to make sure that the city's money will be used to help those that were most impacted by COVID-19. And I want to do that in a way that's not just going to help them for a year or two, but I want to do it in a way that's going to help them for generations to come. Because unfortunately, a lot of people of color have lived in poverty for many, many, many generations. Now is an opportunity to end that. And that's what I'm committed to doing with the ARP funding. So I appreciate any input, any questions. Thank you for having me as part of this. And I look forward to hearing the next speaker more than talking myself. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schimber. We appreciate your time and we appreciate you sharing with us today. We're going to move forward with, we have Sister Tiffany Levette. She's a local entrepreneur. She's also an advocate for women's empowerment. We're excited to hear from her. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Miss Tiffany right now.
Thank you. Can you nod, please, if you can hear me clearly? I want to make sure before I proceed. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate the NAACP being able to pivot so quickly for us and pull us together. So we really appreciate you for your flexibility and for everyone pivoting and joining all of us on the call and on YouTube, as well as those who are looking on Facebook today. Thank you. A couple things about Dr. King that stood out to me is that he was really intentional. He was very intentional when there was an issue. He was not reactionary without a plan, without a strategic plan, without being intentional about what his moves were and what they are currently today with our generations moving forward. So one important thing is that we have to be intentional about our planning and about how we're moving and maneuvering together. And so a few things were put out, Mr. Horton, by you, Mr. Andre Horton, about you being willing to work with others. And so I'll say the same. I'm more than willing to partner with any organizations, especially in the area of childcare land, because in regards to voter registration, this is what we do already at ABC. We have incorporated a program where we do voter registrations. We definitely push voter registrations when it's getting close to the next upcoming elections, those kind of things. So I definitely would encourage those who have businesses to host voter registration events at your facilities. We can definitely capture our neighbors and capture those constituents that we have that are all connected to us and those who we're responsible for. So I like to go through, of course, the ABCs of what I think are really, really important to us and for us to really work and maneuver and move forward together with understanding those ABCs to really being intentional with the voter registration and things that are going on in honor with this conversation, in honor of Dr. King Jr. And one thing, just kind of take us to reality here, the reason why we had to pivot is the weather. Everyone is snowed in Erie right now. And honestly, when I took a step back and looked at it, I was really appreciative of the snow, not safety issues and things that have come up, but for the fact that we really had to take that moment and honor the day and honor Dr. King Jr. for what he has done. So it kind of took out some excuses of us not being able to, can't, because many places have closed. When we see that the Mill Creek Mall has closed, that means there is a message for real. So the message is for us to have the conversation and dialogue, but also activate and really, really take a moment to include others in our plan on how we can address, how we can move forward and activate and improve things together. So I'm going to start with A, and I mentioned already, activating your constituents with a plan, having your plan solid so that when you begin to have those meetings with those who may patronize your business or those who you attend church with, those who you live next door to, that your plan is solid, your ideas are solid, even having conversations with those people to say, hey, what is it that we can do together to make this work to increase voter registration? The B that I was thinking of is being intentional with the process and dividing up tasks. So, we know that Mr. Horton, Mr. Gary Horton has always took the lead when it's come to voter registration in the community, when it's come to getting out the vote efforts. So we continue to look to you, Mr. Horton, for that. And I'm telling you, we're on board. So whatever schedule you put out, the time frame to activate, to do these voter registration things together, ABC is going to be right along with you, hosting voter registration events for our parents so that our children can see their parents registering to vote. Another thing we've done with the daycare, we've transported our parents to the voting polls. So taking that extra step up, if you're that business owner or you're that leader in your neighborhood, pick up your neighbors, who are seniors that might not be able to get to the polls and take them to the poll. Let's make this work together. So C, in the ABCs of this plan and being intentional about what we have to do to move forward is creating leadership opportunities. And so what does that mean? Inviting those who they have the zeal, they have the passion, but they may not have or understand the direction on how to move and pivot. Let's pull them in and start training. Let's do voter registrations together. You take section ABC, you take section DE, however it goes, let's make it work. Let's have a tight plan and have these intentional conversations with those who we're connected to, because there is definitely power in our vote, as we know, and we cannot allow for elections to be stolen from underneath us. Thank you all, and we appreciate you for the pivot. Thank you for the invitation. And as we continue to grow together, ABC is here.
Thank you, Ms. Tiffany. Thank you for your investment in the community and your passion for voting as we continue to move forward as a city. Well, our final speaker for this afternoon's session is my pastor, my brother, my friend. He's a local pastor. He is a musician. He is an entrepreneur. He's a mentor. He is the director, the founder, visionary of the Empower Life Community Development Corporation. I'm honored to introduce to some and present to others, Pastor Daryl Cook. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I certainly want to say thank you to our MC on today, Elder Patrick Lyons, who has just done such an awesome job keeping us together, keeping us on just on task. And I'll certainly thank our NAACP president, Mr. Gary Horton, who has given a platform for young leaders and those whose voices may sometimes get lost in the shuffle. The Bible is always clear that it's not about the old or the young. It is a both and. Both of us need to work together. One has wisdom, the other has strength. And when we come together, there's so much more that we're able to accomplish. And so I thank Mr. Horton for being the trailblazer that he is and for being our living legend. To our councilmen and councilwomen, thank you so much for your leadership and for all that you do. We are certainly grateful to you and your work in this, our city. Our mayor, thank you for joining us and for sharing in this moment. It matters when the faith community, when the business community, when those who work in civil rights and those who are our activists and our advocates come together with city officials. It just makes our work just move so much smoother. So I thank Mayor and all of those who are on today, all of our business owners. We're grateful to you. There is a book written by Vincent Harding, and he raises a concept that's entitled Inconvenient Hero. So that he talks about heroes and people that we raise up and people that we idolize. But he says we have a tendency to make our heroes convenient. We don't want inconvenient heroes. Those are heroes that say what we don't want to hear, that make decisions that we don't agree with. We want convenient heroes. Those are ones that we can control the sound bites, that they articulate everything that we want to hear and do what we want done. And unfortunately, we have at times made MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., a convenient hero. We have limited him to a soundbite, where if you talk to people who can say, what do you know about Martin Luther King Jr.? They'll say, I have a dream. And while that was a great speech and that was a great moment, many people who know the behind the scenes story of that know that while MLK was doing MLK type things and he was speaking with clarity, his message wasn't resonating. And it was Mahalia Jackson that is behind him and kind of senses the moment. And she says, Martin, tell them about the dream. And that's when Martin shifts and he begins to speak about his dream and his vision for America. Parenthetically, I need to say that it was a woman that sensed the tenor and the tone of the environment, and she got Martin back on key. And I need to say this, that women have always been important to the movement, and the voices of our women matter. And we need to make sure that they are heard, because our women bring so much to the table that we can't just be about male voices and male opinions. We need to have our sisters in the room who can discern the environment and can help us to navigate the spaces that we find ourselves in. But while Martin was articulating his dream, it would be less than a month later that he would have to relive the American nightmare. Because while many of us know Martin Luther King Jr., you may not know the name Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, Carol Denise McNair. These four young ladies who unfortunately lost their lives in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. Don't miss this, that it was August 28th, 1963, that Martin declared he had a dream, but it was September 15th, 1963, that there was a bombing that took Black lives and that killed Black people in our sacred space. While Martin was articulating his dream, less than a month later, he would have to relive his nightmare. And that's why it's dangerous to say he was merely a dreamer. King was not just a dreamer, he was a son. He was a preacher. He was an activist. He was one who saw the issues of the day and he gave intentional thought. As Tiffany just said, he gave strategy. He had planned and he organized people around what should be done. Our great councilman, Brother Andre Horton, testified to this truth, that we can't just exchange in rhetoric and in conversations, that there must be some bite that is connected to our bark. And that's how it was with King. King didn't just talk about voting rights. King moved policy around voting rights. He used his voice to move that policy. And it wasn't just about voting rights, it was about civil rights that King was, of course, interested in. But then there's another right that he was interested in, and that is fair housing. He fought for fair housing. It's so important that we see King as the whole of who he was. And we also remember that we aren't talking, as I prayed earlier, about a 40, 50, 60-year-old man. We are talking about a young man who got active, who got involved, yielded his voice to foreign policy issues, to local issues. And then because my sister Tiffany is on and Angela McNair are on, and they are advocates when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, economic development and power. King wasn't just interested in voting rights. That was important. He was interested in that. He wasn't just interested in fair housing. That was important, but that wasn't the only thing he was interested in. King was ready to move on what he had labeled the Poor People's Campaign, and that King let it be known that if a people are going to move forward and they are going to be all that they can be, that we have to revisit the economic question, that we have to make sure that financial resources get to where they need to be. And that's why, Mayor, I appreciate what you said. I appreciate you putting that on the record, that ARP money is available and that it needs to hit communities that have been impacted. Because one thing we know about COVID-19 is that COVID-19 didn't just create economic disparities and medical disparities. It exposed disparities that were already there where we had not positioned economic resources. And so I'm glad to have it on the record. I'm glad to be having conversations that we need to move millions of dollars into our community so that our people can be financially literate. We need to move these conversations so that as COVID-19 has exposed health disparities, that there are a lot of things people die from that are preventable. Mr. Mayor talked about COVID-19, how it has been preventable. Well, also some of the heart issues that we die from, it is preventable. Diabetes and some of those issues that we die from is preventable. But when you have a people who have been impacted generationally by systemic issues and have ideas that have been passed through generations, we need to make sure that we match that with our dollars so that we can have the impact that we need to have. And like a Baptist preacher, I'll say this one more time. This will be my closing statement. King was very interested, and he was one who understood that there is a difference between equality and equity. Because if we limit our conversations to equality, we can continue to talk about progress, progress, progress. And while I like conversations about progress, those conversations ultimately, they ultimately lull people to sleep so that we get focused on the progress and we miss the fact that there's work still to be done. Now, if you would Google right now and you were to ask Google, what is the difference between equality and equity? Google would say this: equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. But why I believe we had cut off for a second. That's why all the conversations that we have been having are so important today, because it's not just about equity, or it's not just about equality. It is about equity. And I'm committed to the fight. And I thank all of those who are on today. And I truly believe that old song is true. We shall, we can, we will overcome as long as we remain in the fight.
My goodness, what a challenge, what a eye-opening set of instruction. And so again, in conclusion, we want to thank each and every one of you for logging on, each and every one of you for catching this moment. I believe this is a key moment, and it depends on what we do after this that will set the stage for who we become and what takes place in our community. I would be remiss again if I did not thank Brother Gary Horton and the NAACP for their leadership in the city and for this moment that we see here. I pray that every one of you heard a challenge. There's a challenge in each nugget that was dropped today. And I pray that we all grab hold of the challenge. On the legislative end, I pray that our mayor grabs hold of the challenge. I pray that our county council members and our city council members grab hold of the challenge. I pray that all those voters who may or may not have been using their right to vote grab hold of the challenge and understand the urgency is definitely now, and the urgency is of now. And so therefore, depending on how we respond will determine the weight and the impact that we produce through this moment. So in conclusion, again, thank you, NAACP. Thank you for all the resources and teams that came together. Thank you for our leadership. Thank you for our legislators. Thank you for being who you are and doing what you do as we continue to move forward, so his dream does not become unfulfilled and we walk it out in our daily lives. In conclusion, thank you so much for your time with us today, and we pray you all continue to move forward. Good evening.
I just want to thank all y'all. Job